As we start the new year, many of you might have the resolution to get your finances under control. Financial professional Scott Braddock joins us with simple ways to save more of that hard-earned cash. We'll be taking your questions throughout the show. You can text them to the number on your screen right there, 336-379-5775. Okay, let's start right here. What can we do to start saving more money?
All right. Well, I hope that a lot of folks in this new year have made New Year's resolutions to save more money. So I'm excited to be here to share some ideas with you. One of the reasons that we want to make sure that we are taking advantage of our 401ks at work is because if we're not, we could be leaving free money on the table. A lot of employers that offer 401k plans are going to match your contribution up to a certain percentage. So if you're not participating, all right, if you don't play, you don't have a chance to win. So don't leave any of that free money. It's probably the biggest advice that I can give our savers out there going into 2024. Now, oftentimes it's hard for folks to save money because once it comes to them, they just start thinking of bills and expenditures, all the outflow that has to take place. So a quick tip here is try to have a certain amount of money taken from your paycheck so that you never see it. Very hard to spend money, Hunter, if you never see it in the first place.
Yeah, that's a very good point. The other thing I know I've heard too, is it's never too young to start. Is that right?
I do a lot of college education courses, and those are really geared towards folks that are 55 and older. And that is something that I say time and time again. It's never too late to get started. You just need the right tools and some good information to get you that first step forward.
I like that. Okay, so what is the difference between CDs and a savings account?
Right, so a CD is going to pay a higher rate of return than a traditional savings account. However, the difference is that there's a commitment involved when you open up a CD. That could be 6 months, it could be 12 months, 3 years, 5 years even. And so we know that when we have our money in a CD, that if we ever want to take money out of it, they're going to charge us a penalty for early withdrawal. You'll be surrendering a certificate. So we need to understand that so that we don't get burnt, right? A traditional savings account won't pay you as much interest. However, it's a little bit more flexible and you can access your savings money. You can make additional deposits. What we want to be careful of typically here, though, is you can only make about 5 withdrawals per month. But the big downside here compared to a CD, if we're comparing these two together, is that you're going to receive a lower rate of return because there's no commitment there.
So if somebody's looking to, go for CDs, I guess, what's that process? How do you start that up?
Well, in today's world, you no longer need to go down to the bank to open up these CDs as you would have in the past. However, that is a great place where you could go down, you can form a relationship with your local banker, you can establish the CD, find out if you put in $500, how much interest that will give you, because what you'll learn is the more money you put on deposit, the more they're going to pay you in interest. In addition to that, the longer the term, the more they're going to pay you in interest as well. But in today's era, you can also go online. There's a lot of banks there that also offer CDs, and sometimes they offer a little better, higher rate of return because they don't have the overhead with the brick and mortar traditional building.
So I know a lot of people have just experienced Christmas. They're, kind of crunching the numbers. It's the start of the new year, right? Resolutions are in place. I guess what would be some of your tips right now after maybe some are in that deficit, maybe they kind of battled some of that? What would be your advice for them as they move into the new year?
Right. So the folks that are experiencing some shell shock as those credit card statements are starting to trickle in the mail, right? So we need a good strategy to tackle debt. How can we really aggressively start paying down that debt? There's a couple I'll share with you. One is the nickel approach, and this can be fun. You can include your friends, and the power of saving a nickel a day and then adding an additional nickel the following day, and so on and so forth for 365 days. By the end of the year, just playing around with nickels, you have almost a little over $3,300. So that's a great one. That could be fun. Get your friends, family involved in that one. But one that if you're really serious and you want to start seeing that debt disappear, try the avalanche method. That's where you go ahead and orchestrate all of your debt together. Start paying the highest debt off first, and then go on to the next one. And over time, what you'll see is a snowball effect, if you will, as you start to tackle that debt and see that balance go down, which we all want to see in the new year.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So another question we have from a viewer, can you convert a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA?
Well, the answer is yes, you can, but be careful here because what you need to understand is that you'll pay taxes when you do that. And that's the big difference, the key difference between those two different vehicles. A traditional IRA, all the money in there is taxable. Yes, you can pull that money out and you can start to convert that to a Roth, but you will pay taxes as you do that. However, if you're meeting with a financial professional like myself, there are strategies in which you can do that. It's known as a backdoor Roth conversion. It can be complicated, but if you're working with the right professional, they can not only share with you if that is beneficial in your given situation, but also how to go about it.
I think this is all really good advice. I think a lot of people struggle when it comes to, the next steps on financial planning with that. When it comes to putting stuff into your retirement, what are other key tips that you'd give people?
Well, I think what folks need to do is have a really solid understanding of their inflow and their outflow. And the only way you're going to do that is if you actually build a budget. Now, that budget word can scare some folks. However, you can call it a spending plan. You can call it whatever you want. Your desired retirement plan. But if you're watching how you're spending your money, and in actuality, it's the only way that you're going to find ways to cut back on your expenses. Because after you're watching and you're paying attention, you'll start to see unnecessary expenses that you can dial back on when you need to and start putting that money in retirement accounts like your 401k, like your IRA. Start a Roth IRA and just start to put that money away and start thinking long term, which is a really good tip if you want to have a nice retirement one day.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so we're going to give people a break so they can go grab their notebooks, and then we'll be right back after this, and we'll be answering more of your questions.